The unexpected guests. The void of space stretched endlessly around the Terran colonial fleet as 12 massive ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. Their angular hulls bore the scars of countless journeys through asteroid fields and solar storms, each vessel a testament to human engineering's brutal efficiency. At the fleet's head, the TSS Prometheus cut through space like a predator stalking its prey. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the star charts displayed on the main screen. At 45, she had already commanded 3 successful colony expeditions to hostile worlds where lesser species would have perished within hours. Her dark eyes reflected the cold light of distant stars, and her expression carried the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the universe's worst and emerged victorious. Status report, Commander Torres, she said without turning from the display. Commander Marcus Torres, a lean man with graying temples and calculating eyes, consulted his tactical display. All ships report ready, Captain. Long-range sensors are picking up massive artificial structures throughout the system. This stellar confederation is definitely more advanced than our initial intelligence suggested. Chen nodded slowly. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with alien civilization, and the galaxy had proven to be far more crowded than anyone had expected. The Stellar Confederation controlled over 300 star systems, representing dozens of species who had somehow managed to coexist in relative peace for millennia. It was an impressive achievement that had caught Earth's attention for all the wrong reasons. Any response to our diplomatic transmissions? Chen asked. Nothing yet. Captain. We've been broadcasting on all known frequencies for the past 6 hours, but they seem to be ignoring us. Chen's jaw tightened slightly. The Confederation had been sending mixed signals to Earth for months. Their official communication spoke of peace and cooperation, but their actions suggested something entirely different. Human trading ships were being turned away from Confederation space, diplomatic envoys were being stonewalled, and most concerning of all, long-range reconnaissance had detected what appeared to be massive military buildups near human-controlled systems. Captain, Lieutenant Jessica Park called from the communication station. I'm detecting increased chatter on Confederation military frequencies. They're using encryption protocols we haven't seen before, but the volume suggests significant fleet movements. Chen finally turned from the display, her expression grim. It seems our arrival has been noticed. Maintain course and speed. If they want to talk, they know where to find us. 300 million kilometers away, in the crystal spires of Nexus Prime's orbital capital, High Chancellor Vorthak of the Stellar Confederation was experiencing what humans would recognize as a panic attack. The tall, elegant alien with silver skin and 4 graceful arms was pacing back and forth in his private chamber, his usual composure completely shattered. 12 ships, he muttered to himself, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that indicated extreme stress. 12 Deathworlder ships in perfect military formation, heading straight for our most important system. An urgent chime announced the arrival of his military advisor, War Leader Kados. The smaller, more compact alien entered with swift, nervous movements that betrayed his own anxiety. High Chancellor, Kados began, his mandibles clicking rapidly, our deep space sensors have completed their analysis of the human fleet. The news is worse than we feared. Vorthak's 4 eyes all focused on his advisor with laser-like intensity. How much worse? Each of those ships masses over 2 million tons. Their hulls are constructed from some kind of composite armor we've never encountered. Most disturbing of all, they are showing energy signatures consistent with antimatter containment systems. The High Chancellor's silver skin paled to an almost translucent white. The Confederation had banned antimatter weapons centuries ago after seeing what they could do to inhabited planets. The fact that humans were casually flying around with antimatter reactors spoke to either incredible confidence or terrifying recklessness. What about their intentions? Vorthak asked. Have they responded to our hails? That's the most troubling part, Chancellor. They haven't tried to communicate at all. Their ships maintain perfect formation, they are ignoring all our diplomatic frequencies, and their course suggests they intend to establish orbital positions around our primary worlds. Vorthak closed all 4 eyes and tried to think. The reports about humans had been contradictory from the beginning. Some described them as violent primitives who had barely achieved spaceflight. Others painted them as incredibly dangerous survivors from a world so hostile that it regularly tried to kill its own inhabitants. The presence of a military fleet in the heart of Confederation space suggested the latter reports were more accurate. Activate the emergency defense protocol, he decided. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from all orbital facilities. And send a priority message to Earth demanding an explanation for this invasion. Invasion? Kato's antennae twitched with confusion. Should we not attempt communication first? Look at their formation, War Leader. Look at their approach vector. This is not a diplomatic mission. This is a military operation planned by strategists who understand exactly what they are doing. Back on the Prometheus, Captain Chen was reviewing the intelligence reports about Confederation species when her contemplation was interrupted by excited shouting from the sensor station. Captain! Ensign Williams called out, his voice cracking with excitement. You need to see this. The aliens are mobilizing their entire defense fleet. We are counting over 200 ships moving to intercept us. Chen moved to the tactical display where Commander Torres was already analyzing the alien formations. What they saw made both humans exchange worried glances. They are treating us like an invasion force, Torres observed quietly. Look at those defensive positions. They are preparing for a full-scale assault. But we sent diplomatic credentials hours ago, Chen replied, her confusion evident. Our intentions should be clear. Lieutenant Park looked up from her station with a troubled expression. Captain, I've been analyzing their communication protocols. I think there might be a problem with our translation matrices. The linguistic patterns don't match what we expected from a peaceful confederation. Before Chen could respond, the main communications system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged spoke accented but understandable English, though the tone was anything but friendly. Unknown human vessels, this is High Chancellor Vorthak of the Stellar Confederation. You have entered sovereign territory without permission. And are displaying hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Chen stepped forward to the communication station. Open a channel, Lieutenant. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what was obviously an alien command center. High Chancellor Vorthak appeared on screen, his forearms gesticulating in what seemed to be agitation. Despite his alien appearance, his emotional state was unmistakably similar to that of a cornered animal. High Chancellor, Chen began in her most diplomatic tone, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Fleet. We are here on a peaceful mission to establish formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the Stellar Confederation. I believe there has been some misunderstanding. Vorthak's four eyes narrowed as he studied the human on his screen. She appeared calm and composed, but he had read the reports about Deathworlder psychology. Their ability to remain functional under extreme stress was legendary among the galaxy's more cautious species. Peaceful mission. Vorthak's voice carried clear skepticism. Captain Chen, your fleet is in perfect military formation. Your ships carry enough firepower to destroy planets. Your approach vector demonstrates clear knowledge of our defensive capabilities. This does not appear peaceful to me. Asterisk. Chen blinked in surprise. High Chancellor, these are standard safety protocols for interstellar travel. Our formation is designed to protect against asteroid impacts and solar radiation. Our weapons are purely defensive. And our course was calculated to avoid any restricted areas marked in your public navigation charts. For a moment, both leaders stared at each other across the void of space and the gulf of understanding. Each was interpreting the other's actions through the lens of their own experience, and those lenses showed them completely different realities. Captain, Vorthak said slowly, are you telling me that what we interpret as aggressive military posturing is simply how humans travel through space? High Chancellor, Chen replied with equal caution, are you telling me that what we interpret as diplomatic courtesy is being seen as a threat to your civilization? The silence that followed was filled with the growing realization that two entirely different species with completely different evolutionary backgrounds had spent months misunderstanding each other's intentions in the most dangerous possible way. Commander Torres leaned close to Chen's ear. Captain, if they've been interpreting our normal operations as military threats, what have they been doing in response that we've been misreading? Chen felt a chill run down her spine. The military build-ups near human space, the refusal to allow human ships into Confederation territory, the increasingly formal diplomatic language, it had all been defensive measures by a civilization that thought humanity was preparing for war. High Chancellor, she said carefully, I think we need to have a much longer conversation. Perhaps it would be possible to meet in person and discuss our mutual concerns. Vorthak considered this proposal. Every instinct told him to maintain distance from these dangerous Deathworlders, but the alternative, a war with beings who carried antimatter weapons as standard equipment, was even more terrifying. Very well, Captain Chen. There is a neutral station at the edge of this system. If you are truly here for diplomatic purposes, you will meet me there with minimal escort. Agreed, High Chancellor. We will reduce our fleet to a single ship for the meeting. As the transmission ended, both leaders began preparing for what might be either the beginning of a historic alliance or the prelude to a galactic war. Neither suspected that their careful diplomatic dance was about to be interrupted by a threat that would make their misunderstanding seem trivial by comparison. In the depths of space, ancient sensors detected the massive energy signatures of human antimatter reactors and alien defensive systems powering up. After sleeping for millennia, something that had been waiting patiently in the void between stars began to stir. The arrival of new prey had awakened the Devourers, and they were hungry. When worlds collide, the neutral station hung in space like a crystalline flower, its delicate architecture a testament to Confederation engineering and aesthetic sensibilities. Captain Chen approached in a single shuttle, accompanied only by Commander Torres and a small diplomatic team. The station's docking bay was designed for the graceful curves of Confederation vessels, making the angular human shuttle look like a predator among butterflies. As Chen stepped through the airlock, she was struck by the station's ethereal beauty. The corridors were lined with what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with soft, bioluminescent light. The air carried hints of ozone and something floral that she couldn't identify. Everything was designed for beings who had evolved in gentle environments where survival was never in question. High Chancellor Vorthak waited in the station's central meeting chamber, accompanied by his own small entourage. As the two groups faced each other across the elegant conference table, the physical differences between their species became starkly apparent. The Confederation representatives moved with fluid grace, their bodies adapted for efficiency and beauty. The humans, by contrast, carried themselves with the coiled redness of apex predators, their movements economical and purposeful. Captain Chen, Vorthak began, his harmonic voice carrying genuine curiosity, I must confess that your species continues to surprise us. Our scientists have analyzed recordings of your shuttle's approach, and we cannot understand how your pilot managed to navigate through that asteroid field at such velocity. Chen glanced at Commander Torres, who smiled slightly. High Chancellor, Lieutenant Peterson is actually one of our less experienced pilots. What you observed would be considered routine maneuvering for human spaces. The Confederation representatives exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their growing realization of just how different human capabilities were from their own expectations. Perhaps, Vorthak said carefully, we should begin with a fundamental question. What exactly does humanity want from the Stellar Confederation? Chen leaned forward, her expression serious but not threatening. High Chancellor, we want what any species wants when they encounter galactic civilization for the first time. We want to trade, to learn, to share knowledge and culture. We want to find our place among the stars without having to fight for it. And if that place is denied to you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Chen considered her response carefully, aware that her next words might determine whether humanity would be welcomed into galactic society or forced to carve out their own territory through conquest. Then we would find another place, she said simply. The galaxy is vast, High Chancellor. There is room for everyone who is willing to coexist peacefully. Before Vorthak could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The gentle bioluminescent lighting shifted to harsh red warning strobes, and automated voices began speaking in several languages simultaneously. Emergency alert, the station's AI announced in perfect English. Unknown vessels detected approaching at sublight velocity. Configuration and energy signatures do not match any known species. All personnel report to emergency stations immediately. Commander. Torres was already accessing his portable tactical display when Science Minister Zenth, one of Vorthak's advisors, burst into the chamber. The mantis-like alien's compound eyes were wide with what could only be described as terror. **A High Chancellor. Zenth chittered rapidly, the approaching vessels. They matched descriptions from the Forbidden Archives. The ancient warnings. They are devourers. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Even Captain Chen, who had never heard the term before, could sense the absolute dread that the word inspired in the Confederation representatives. Devourers, she asked. What are devourers? Vorthak's silver skin had gone completely pale. They are why the Confederation exists, Captain Chen. 3,000 years ago, they nearly destroyed all intelligent life in this part of the galaxy. Machine intelligences that consume matter and energy to fuel their reproduction. We thought they had been defeated. How many ships are approaching? Torres asked, his tactical mind already shifting to combat assessment mode. 17 confirmed contacts, Zenth replied, his mandibles clicking with anxiety. Each one massing approximately 50 million tons. Energy output suggests planetary-scale weapons systems. Asterisk. Chen felt her heart sink. 17 ships of that magnitude would be more than capable of destroying both the human fleet and the Confederation Defense Forces combined. But as she watched the alien's reaction, she realized something that might change everything. High Chancellor, she said quietly, you're afraid of them. Of course I am afraid, Vorthak replied, his composure cracking completely. Any rational being would be afraid. They are death incarnate. But you're not just afraid of their weapons, Chen continued, her understanding growing. You're afraid because you don't know how to fight them. Your species, your entire civilization, has been at peace for so long that you've forgotten how to wage war. The silence that followed was deafening. Every Confederation representative in the room looked stricken, as if Chen had voiced a truth they had been desperately trying to avoid acknowledging. Commander Torres stepped forward, his expression grim but determined. Captain, if I may suggest something. We might not be able to defeat 17 ships of that magnitude in direct combat, but we don't have to fight them the way they expect to be fought. Chen nodded, already seeing where his tactical mind was heading. High Chancellor, how much do you know about human military doctrine? Very little, Vorthak admitted. Your species' violent history is well documented, but we assumed such knowledge would be irrelevant in space. On the contrary, Chen replied, her confidence growing. Space combat is still combat, and combat is something humans understand. Very well. If you're willing to trust us, we might be able to save both our peoples. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic preparation. The human fleet and Confederation Defense Forces repositioned themselves according to a battle plan that violated every principle of civilized warfare the aliens had ever learned. Instead of meeting the enemy in honorable battle, they were preparing ambushes, traps, and diversionary tactics that would have been considered unspeakably barbaric in any previous Confederation conflict. Admiral Elena Vasquez, commanding the human fleet from her flagship, studied the tactical displays with the cold calculation of a chess master. At 60, she had fought in more space battles than the rest of the Confederation military combined, and her strategic mind was already 3 moves ahead of the approaching enemy. Position confirmed on all hunter-killer teams, her communications officer reported. Confederation vessels are in position for the gravity well maneuver. Human ships are ready for close-range engagement. Outstanding, Vasquez replied. Remember, people, we only get one chance at this. If we fail, there won't be anyone left to learn from our mistakes. The Devourers arrived in system like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships were nightmarish constructions of organic curves and mechanical angles, designed by artificial intelligences that viewed efficiency as the highest virtue. They moved with perfect coordination, sweeping through space in formations that suggested hive mind control. What they encountered, however, was unlike anything in their ancient tactical databases. Instead of meeting them with massed formations and superior firepower, the combined human Confederation fleet had seemingly scattered throughout the system. Small groups of ships darted in and out of asteroid fields, weapon signatures flickered on and off seemingly at random, and communication networks buzzed with coded transmissions that made no logical sense. The Devourers' collective intelligence was sophisticated enough to recognize that they were facing an unfamiliar tactical doctrine, but their programming was based on millions of years of conquest against species that fought according to predictable patterns. They had never encountered opponents who treated warfare as an art form rather than a science. The first Devourer ship died in a carefully orchestrated crossfire between 3 human destroyers and a Confederation cruiser. The aliens provided precision long-range fire that stripped away the enemy's defensive systems, while the humans closed to point-blank range and delivered devastating kinetic strikes that punched through the weakened armor. The second ship fell victim to what Admiral Vasquez cheerfully called a gravity slingshot special. Confederation vessels, with their superior gravitational manipulation technology, used a gas giant's gravity well to accelerate human kinetic projectiles to relativistic velocities. The impact was visible from 3 star systems away. But it was the destruction of the third Devourer ship that truly demonstrated the power of human-alien cooperation. Science Minister Zenth had provided detailed analysis of Devourer hull composition, while human engineers had designed specialized warheads that would exploit specific molecular weaknesses. The result was a weapon that turned the enemy's own armor into a cascading chain reaction of destruction. As the battle continued, the Devourers found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to logical parameters. Human ships would ram their opponents at full velocity, their crews surviving impacts that should have been instantly fatal. Confederation vessels would sacrifice themselves to provide tactical advantages for their human allies, abandoning their instinctive self-preservation in favor of strategic necessity. Most confusing of all was the humans' apparent enjoyment of the chaos. Confederation monitoring systems picked up radio chatter from human crews that included laughter, jokes, and what could only be described as expressions of exhilaration. These Deathworlders were not just surviving impossible odds, they were thriving on them. Captain Chen, coordinating the battle from her position on the neutral station, watched the tactical displays with professional satisfaction. Commander Torres, signal Admiral Vasquez. It's time for the final phase. Torres nodded and opened a channel to the fleet commander. Admiral, this is Torres. The captain says it's time to show them what humans do when we stop playing nice. Vasquez's reply was immediate and carried the fierce joy of a warrior in her element. Copy that, Commander. All ships, implement Protocol Omega. Let's finish this. The remaining Devourer ships, having lost more than half their number to tactics they couldn't understand, attempted to withdraw from the system. What they encountered instead was the trap that Admiral Vasquez had been preparing since the battle began. Human ships, their hulls scarred and weapons nearly depleted, formed a perfect sphere around the retreating enemy. At the sphere's center, Confederation vessels had assembled a gravitational resonance array that would prevent any ship from entering hyperspace. The Devourers were trapped in normal space with opponents who had proven they could destroy superior numbers through sheer tactical brilliance. The final phase of the battle lasted less than 10 minutes. Coordinated strikes from every remaining vessel in the combined fleet overwhelmed the last Devourer ships with precision that bordered on the supernatural. When the shooting stopped, 17 of the galaxy's most feared predators had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris and exotic matter. High Chancellor Vorthak, monitoring the battle from the station's command center, found himself staring at the tactical displays in amazement. The impossible had happened. The Devourers, scourge of 1,000 worlds, had been defeated by a combined force that had been enemies just hours before. Captain Chen, he said quietly, I believe I owe your species an apology. We feared you because we thought you were like the Devourers, dangerous and destructive. We failed to understand that there is a difference between being capable of violence and being consumed by it. Chen nodded, her expression thoughtful. High Chancellor, humanity learned long ago that sometimes you must fight to preserve peace. We don't enjoy war, but we excel at it because we understand that freedom and safety must be earned. And now? Vorthak asked. What happens between our peoples now that we have fought together against a common enemy? Chen smiled, and for the first time, the expression reached her eyes. Now we build something better than either of us could create alone. The galaxy just became a more dangerous place, High Chancellor. The Devourers may return, and there may be other threats we haven't encountered yet. But together, we can face anything the universe throws at us. In the months that followed, the Human Confederation Alliance would become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. One that combined the peaceful wisdom of species who had transcended violence with the practical knowledge of a species that had mastered it. The Deathworlder fleet had indeed changed everything, but not in the way anyone had expected. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most dangerous-looking strangers could become the most valuable allies. And humanity had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as protectors of all who valued freedom over safety and cooperation over submission. The age of the Deathworlder fleet had begun, and nothing would ever be the same.